All right, well, why don't we go ahead and jump into it? Um, Happy Tuesday, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Jericho Bankson. I'm the small firms chair for AIA Oregon and the incoming director of the Portland section in 2026, currently serving as director-elect. Thanks for joining us for the last in this series of the Business of Architecture. If you've been with us from the beginning, it's been an interesting series, something that I think we're looking forward to carrying forward the next few years. We're blessed today with Joanne Scherer. Did I get that right? Yes. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Good job.
Thank you. We're blessed today with Joanne from the SBDC, Small Business Development Center of Oregon. It is a national organization. I'll let her speak a bit more to that. She's going to be speaking today very broadly about SBDC. And so I've asked in the registration to come prepared with questions because we're going to reserve some time at the end for some questions specifically to your business, or if you've just got general professional questions or you're looking for additional information. Joanne can kind of help touch on some of that. So she's got a really high level presentation, but looking forward to it. Thank you to our title sponsor, the Business of Architecture Series, Portland Millwork. I don't see Jim with us here today, but Jim has been a long-standing supporter of the Small Firms Exchange in AIA Oregon with Portland Millwork. If you're unfamiliar with them, go check them out. They do some great work. Also, thank you to Kathy Wendland and AIA staff for helping support the SFX committee and this series in particular. It would not be possible without Kathy's support and these late evenings jumping on to let you all into the queue because I'm just not cool enough to have access to that. So a quick introduction of Joanne, and then Joanne, I'll let you share your screen and take the floor. Joanne Scherer has been with the Oregon SBDC Network since 2008. She's worked as a business advisor for the Chemeketa Community College SBDC and currently serves as an adjunct faculty teaching Introduction to Business Ownership for the college. She works on a project basis with the Oregon SBDC Network lead office, focusing on professional development and performance excellence, and I'm sure she does a lot more. So with that, I'm going to give the floor to Joanne. If you can hold all your questions until the end, we'd really appreciate it. If it's a burning question and you're worried that you're going to forget, go ahead and drop it in the chat and we will go through those as they come in sequentially when the Q&A portion starts. And this is being recorded. So thank you all for joining. And with that, Joanne, the floor is yours.
Okay, let me share my screen. And whoops, sorry about that. I did it wrong. Let me go back. Come on. Somehow I'm in some kind of annotate mode, so not sure how that happened. I'm going to stop sharing a second. Okay. Let's see if I can do this again. What is this?
Like I said, years of practice and we still have struggle.
Yeah, we practiced and it's still an issue. Okay, I was worried you all went away, but you're still there. So we're going to try again. Okay, everybody see it?
No.
Did I stop share? Oh, I did. Let me try again. Here we go. Okay. Here's that. Let me find you all. Okay, share. Say my name. Okay. Now it's shared. You can see it?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, here we go.
There we go.
I'll make this go away. Lots of little things. Okay, I see where the annotate. Okay, so I'm going to talk today about how to empower your business with the Oregon SBDC Network. And these are the topics we're going to go through. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Oregon SBDC Network, developing an effective business plan, some best practices for business growth, expanding your team, and then we'll have the Q&A at the end. As Jericho said, there's pretty high level, going to hit the high spots of a lot of this, but feel free to write down specific questions and I can cover those in the Q&A. Many of these topics I could spend an hour on, and so I'm definitely hitting the high points. But we'll also share some follow-up resources after the presentation so you can dig deeper if you have any questions. So about the Oregon SBDC Network. It's actually, the Oregon SBDC Network was founded in 1983, established by the Oregon legislature, but Oregon small business development centers nationwide were actually established by Congress with the Small Business Development Center Act in 1980. Oregon was one of the first to be community college hosted, and we're actually hosted by main host as Lane Community College. We are a member network of America's SBDCs, so know if you happen to not be from Oregon, there are SBDCs all over the country and in U.S. territories. And if you ever leave Oregon, know that there's SBDCs where you go in the United States or U.S. territories that can help. We're the largest nationally accredited business assistant provider in Oregon. We're accredited every 5 years by America's SBDC under the SBA's standards. We're actually going to be going through that next year. And we are funded by the Small Business Administration, Business Oregon, which is the Oregon's economic development department, essentially called Business Oregon. Our host institutions, which we currently have 18, that includes Oregon's 17 community colleges and SOUs at Southern Oregon University, and then other. So there's a fair amount of grant funding, other types of things. City, counties sometimes give money to their local SBDCs, just kind of a hodgepodge of things, but those are our main funding sources. And this is what we're about. We're really about helping to build Oregon's best businesses. And small business is a pretty big catch-all. It's everything from one person, sole proprietor, to actually could be up to 500 employees, depending on the industry. And we're here to help build all of those businesses for anybody who comes to our door for help. So this is just a map of where the SBDCs are in Oregon. Again, we're funded by the SBA, mainly funded by the SBA in Business Oregon. You can see where the various service centers are. We also have the Global Trade Center, which is housed at the Portland SBDC, as well as our Market Research Institute, which is housed at the Southern Oregon SBDC. So what do we do? What do Oregon SBDCs do? Probably our biggest core service is no-cost one-on-one business advising. And that's for everything from pre-venture to how do I leave my business. We offers classes, workshops, and training programs. Classes are usually more, maybe happen over the course of a few times. A workshop is often kind of like a lunch and learn. And training programs in particular, we have our small business management program, which generally goes over the course of 9 months. And that differs by center, but that's kind of the flavor of what those educational opportunities are. And then we also have a number of statewide services. As I mentioned, the Global Trade Center, the Market Research Institute. We also have the Capital Access Team. Capital Access Team really works with people statewide who are looking to access capital. And that could be investor funding, it could be lending. It's really a variety of what they offer to help people access the capital they need or prepare to. The Global Trade Center helps people who are either currently involved in global trade or looking to. They have been a great resource recently as we navigate through a land of new tariffs, those kinds of continual changes. So the Global Trade Center has been a great help in helping people understand that. And the Market Research Institute provides customized market research, particularly often to traded sector or bigger businesses that can actually apply that information, but they do take a particular market research question that a client might have, and then they use the databases that they have available to them to come out with a customized report. And as I mentioned, that's housed at the Southern Oregon University, SBDC. And then we also have business transition services, which business transition is really exit strategy. There's a lot of people, baby boomers, who are looking to change. There's even younger people who are looking to sell a business and start another one, or just how to exit well. Could be a family business, leaving it to an employee, those kinds of things. So we definitely have a thrust in business transition right now. And then other services and resources. So some of the SBDCs offer construction contractor training. Some SBDCs have worked closely with communities and helping childcare businesses become better businesses. It's just business resiliency. Obviously, I was mentioning at the beginning during COVID, disaster assistance when there's a disaster or something like that. Those are some of the other services we provide. And then resources as well. That's resources may be, oh, here's a few bookkeepers in your area you might want to explore, or here's a few website designers you might want to explore. We generally don't make recommendations, specific recommendations, just for liability reasons, but we will provide options for people to explore to find their best fit. So that usually happens during one-on-one advising, or some centers might have a list, particularly in rural areas where there's fewer people to access. They might provide a list to help people know who's available to provide those resources. And then again, we help people from, I have an idea to I want to exit. So just give you a feel for where we are. So it could be launching, growth. Oh, I need to reinvent. Maybe it's just time to stop the business, or they want to sell, or they're looking out 10 years to how can I make my business sellable? We provide services all throughout this continuum. And just to give you a feel for our impact in 2024, we served over 5,600 clients. You can give you a little feel for the demographics there. 1,000 of those are considered long-term advising clients, meaning we worked with them at least 5 hours during the year. The mix is almost half and half of pre-venture to existing businesses, and that's just a feel for the clients that we've served in 2024. And those are unique clients, not duplicates. And then this is our impact from 2024. So help people get about 61 million in capital infusion, and that's 532 different capital transactions. And capital can be big. It can be, I got a $5,000 grant. It just really depends. And we help people, whatever that might be. We helped 289 people start businesses, created 820 jobs, had a little over 6,600 training attendees, and 702 events, just to give you a feel for the impact that we've had. And I wanted to make sure you know of some of our key partners. Some I've already mentioned, Business Oregon. They actually do have direct loans. The state does some direct lending, so trade show type of things. So Business Oregon is a big partner of ours, the Oregon Secretary of State. That's where people register their businesses. They also offer what they call an SOS program. Sometimes when there's some red tape that a business is running into, they can help facilitate that with other government agencies. The Oregon Apex Accelerator, which is actually used to be called the Government Contract Assistance Program. That's what they do, is they help people look into and explore, learn how to bid better, apply for government contracts. Chambers of Commerce, local chambers of commerce are often our partners, whether we work with them on different classes or do referrals. City and county governments, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes they fund, sometimes they provide scholarships to programs, those kinds of things. Different lenders across the state of all different kinds. And just the small business ecosystem. So that might include small businesses. For example, we might give people that list of CPAs or attorneys or bookkeepers in the area, other entrepreneurial organizations, and other technical assistance providers. A lot of communities, Portland in particular, I think they've got like 50 different business technical assistance providers. So we work with all of those to really create a strong small business ecosystem in the state of Oregon so that we can help build Oregon's best businesses. Okay, so that's about us. And we're going to give you some, you'll see our website at the end, and they'll also put in the chat a way to connect with the SBDCs, and then there'll be a follow-up email with some resources. But that's what the SBDCs do. I will reinforce that the advising is at no cost, aka free. So you can connect with an advisor to work on whatever types of issue you might have, and you can use that throughout the life of your business for whatever issue is at hand. So now we'll talk about developing an effective business plan. And, business planning, before I'll just say why a business plan. Some people think that's old school. It actually can be a really important process and a required process. So I would definitely spend a little time considering the value of that, and I'm going to explain why you might. Clarifying startup. Some people are like they want to start, but they're not sure. They don't know who they might be marketing to or how, or what their target market is, or what their particular flavor of service, or how they're going to set themselves apart. So clarifying startup is a good reason. Just discovering what you didn't know. I have worked with many businesses over the years that say, everybody's my customer. Well, it's kind of hard to be everything to all people. So business plan can help you ask yourself those questions, look at strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats, those kinds of things. It's generally required when you're applying for a loan. So if you want to access capital or even getting an investor, they're going to want to see some kind of business plan. Just deciding, do I want to grow? Or how do I want to grow? What do I want my business to look like 10 years from now? That can be another reason to write a business plan. And then lastly, as I mentioned earlier, business transition. If you want to sell a business, sometimes it works. It helps to do that, prep for that early so that your business is actually worth what you want it to be worth when you get there. So a business plan can help with that types of business planning as well. So key elements, and I'm just going to run through these really quickly. And a few of these I'm going to go into a little bit deeper. Just an executive summary, you know what that is. A company description, so what does the business do? What are the products and services? Market analysis, so that's where you're going to get clearer about who's my target market, what is the market, competition, how do you set yourself apart, those kinds of things. That's generally one of the more meaningful aspects of doing business planning is that market analysis. Organization and management, so that's going to be looking at what kind of business structure makes sense, who is my management team or even advisory team, if maybe you're going out solo, but you still want to make sure you've got, say, an SBDC advisor or an attorney or CPA, people who can help counsel you when you run into various things. What are your products and services, or what might they be? So sometimes this is what they are now, and this is what they're going to be 5 years from now. Marketing or sales strategy. So that's going to circle back to market analysis, but looking at what is the best way to get my message out to my target market so that they know I'm here and they want to work with me. That's one that people don't like very much. They don't necessarily want to do the marketing. So that's one that some business owners will shy away from because they don't know how to do it. But again, SBDCs and other technical assistance providers can help with that. And then lastly, financial projections. And that is another, I particularly would say, a very meaningful part of business planning. A lot of people don't like that. They don't want to do the numbers. They don't want to crunch the numbers. They don't know how, but that is a really good way to set yourself up for what do I price my business as? What is my cash flow? How, what can I plan for? Putting yourself in a position to get a loan if that's something you wanted to do. So let's say you wanted to buy a building for your practice. Those are all things that the financial projections can be really valuable toward that process. SBDC can help with that. So I just was going to touch a little bit on business structures. Sole proprietorship is, just one person. It's not separate from the business. The business and that person are the same, and there's no protection for liability purposes. Taxes are done via pass-through entity and are done on somebody's 1040. Sole proprietorships are better for people where there's not very, very little liability. I usually tell people if you're going to be feeding somebody, working on their property, touching them, counseling them, anything like that where the risk of liability goes up, a sole proprietorship isn't the best idea. Next would be partnership, and partnership can be somewhat similar to a sole proprietorship depending on the type of partnership. A general partnership is similar to a sole proprietorship without any liability protection. It's just the two people and their, who they are, more than two people and who they are. It doesn't come with any protection, but some people like to go into partnerships. They're a little dated in that a limited liability company, which I'll talk about next, allows for more fluidity. A partnership's more like a marriage. When somebody leaves it, the partnership ends. So that's something that people are generally going into limited liability companies more than partnerships. There is a limited partnership, and that allows for only the owner or the key owner has liability protection. Actually, I take that back. The owner doesn't, the main owner doesn't have liability protection, but the other ones do. So that kind of helps people that maybe are a small owner, but they're not actually managing the business. So they have some liability protection, and then limited liability is more general liability for everybody involved. Limited liability company, again, that's more fluid. You can add members, you can remove members, all kinds of things like that. You can also grow into a corporation, so it's a little bit more fluid as a limited liability company. Partnership on taxes. Partnership also is a pass-through entity, so any money the business makes pass through to the individual owner's income taxes. Same with limited liability company, except if they elect to be taxed as an S corp, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Limited liability company is a good idea if you are running the risk of higher liability concerns. It's pretty simple. You can have a single member limited liability company or LLC or multi-member, and it does, at least in theory, separate your personal assets from your business's assets, so that if something happened, what would be on the table would be suing the business and not getting your house. We live in a really interesting society around suing people, so that's not foolproof, but it does put that in place that does create some separation between personal and business assets. Corporation, C Corp and professional. So if you were to go to the Secretary of State's office today and register a corporation, it would by default be a C corporation. C Corps are taxed separately as its own entity. And when you have a C Corp, which can be just you, can be just one person, or it can be multiple owners, then the corporation is taxed as well as the individual of the owners or investors, stockholders are also taxed with whatever money they make from the corporation. So it's a little more complex structure, a little more, if you have board meetings, just a little more complexity there. I've heard a CPA say a corporation is like a marriage. It's easy to get into, but not that easy to get out of. So it's not always the best entity to start with. Usually it's better to start with something more simple and grow into complexity as needed. And I would highly defer to a CPA on that. If you have particular interesting tax life or things you're trying to protect or concerns, I would definitely talk to a CPA or a business attorney about the best business structure for you. A professional corporation offers the opportunity. It offers the limited liability from the standpoint of separating the business assets from personal assets, but it also adds some professional liability to the corporation, similar with a professional limited liability company. So there can be some advantages to that. The disadvantage to the professional or the P added to any of that is that all of the business owners have to be in that profession. So you couldn't take on, let's say you wanted an investor and they weren't an architect, they couldn't be an investor because they weren't an architect. So that's where it can be a little bit limiting, but it can be something. A lot of more professional doctors, accountants, attorneys, architects do choose that option just from some of the liability protection that can be offered there. An S corporation, and I put that as a subset because it's not technically a business structure as it is a tax election. So limited liability companies and C corporations can elect to be taxed as an S corporation. And what that does is it makes it so you can, if in the limited liability company's case, you can pay yourself as an employee. And there can be some advantages there around self-employment taxes. In a corporation, it removes that double taxation where the entity is taxed as well as the income from the business. It's a little less complex, but it does require a special election with the IRS, and that has to be done either 45 days of creating the entity, either a limited liability company or the C Corp, or within 75 days of creating the entity, or within 75 days of the new calendar year. It's not a given that it's a good thing to do. It really just depends on the situation. So if you think that's a good way to go and that time you're considering that timing, I'd recommend having a CPA guide you on that from a tax strategy standpoint. That is one thing SBDCs, or two things SBDCs can't do. We can't give tax advice or legal advice. We give tax information and to some degree legal information, but not any advice of that because we're not CPAs and we're not attorneys. And then next would be pricing and profit. I'm not an architect, so I can't speak super well to your industry, but I just wanted to throw out some things to think about that as part of business planning is pricing and profit. I'm really considering market rates for your services and your competitions. So are you in alignment with what your region can support for your services? That could be less, it could be more, and less isn't always better. Consider your approach. So whether it's hourly or percentage of sometimes a percentage of a construction project, fixed fee, a hybrid, what approach makes sense for you, either for your customer, for you, for your business, for cash flow. Just really consider that approach, what makes sense and what feels good to you. I think that's an important one. Remember to pay yourself. Whether you are an employee of your business or not, you want to build in enough profit that you have something to take home. I can't tell you how many people I've seen over the years don't calculate in their time and labor and other things they do to keep their business going and don't charge enough and then can't take anything home. So remember to pay yourself and whatever that might look like. Bid well on projects. Bidding can be an art form. It's often good. You can work with the Oregon Apex Accelerator. They do help with people on bidding. You want to make sure, sometimes people bid low, but then don't make any money. So you want to bid well so that you make sure you cover your costs and then can make a profit on that. Sometimes it can help to talk to people who have been there before you, maybe finding a mentor on that in particular that can give you some tips on the best way to do bidding if you're bidding on a project. Cash flow considerations, some businesses, I go buy a cup of coffee, I pay for my coffee right then, right? But medical, others where there's terms, 30 days, you might not get paid when you're doing the work. So you want to make sure you build that into when am I going to get paid for this, particularly with government contracts. When am I going to get paid for this work? So that you make sure you have the cash flow to keep your business going or pay employees, whatever your business might look like. And then I highly recommend, as I mentioned earlier, with the business planning is creating those financial projections. Even if you're not working on a business plan, create those financial projections for 1 to 2 years. It gives you that big picture. It helps you remember, oh yeah, I've got to pay that insurance and I need to do this. And yeah, I want to bid on this project, but I need to make sure I have enough cash flow to actually do the work. So all of those things can really help you with your pricing and profit to make sure you're not just kind of going day to day, but you're looking out far enough ahead that when you do bid on a project, you have the cash, or you can get a line of credit. Some businesses, particularly who are working on government contracts or big things, might get a line of credit to help with those cash flow considerations before the money comes in. And last, business planning. So just some tips. Just consider your audience. Are you doing this for yourself because you want to get clear? Are you doing it for a banker because you're applying for a loan? Are you looking for an investor? Just consider your audience because that's going to change how you work on the plan. If it's just a kind of an internal creative process, you don't necessarily have to be as serious about it. I even tell people, because it's a creative process, which is my next point, go on a walk, whatever sparks your creativity, allow it to be a creative process versus an academic process, because you're creating your business or creating the growth for your business. So you want to be in that position in order to allow yourself to be creative about it. Keep an eye to growth. So even if you're just at startup, you want to think about, what do I want to be from 5 years from now? Or if you've been in business for 5 years and you're like, oh, I want to get a loan because I want to do this, that, or the other, I want to buy a building. You want to keep an eye to growth as you work on your business plan and not just kind of right now. The process, this goes back to the creative process, is just as valuable as the outcome, and maybe even more. Sometimes the plan changes really quickly, but the process that you went through to ask those questions about your business and yourself and your life and where you want things to go is a really important process to engage in. So I like to tell people, don't get so caught up in the Word document or whatever it is, because it might change really quickly before you even get done. But what you learn in the process is really valuable. And SBDCs review business plans. So if you do have a business plan that you want reviewed, at SBDC Business Advisors provide that service and can give you feedback and help you fill in holes, particularly around financial projections, because that's not one that a lot of people like. So they can help you think through that and tackle that more effectively than you might on your own if it's not something you've done before. And that's that on developing an effective business plan. Next is best practices for business growth. So collaboration, this one might be a little counterintuitive when I get to one of these, but really some ways that you can grow your business is who you collaborate with. And sometimes that might be aligning with another organization. So maybe an interior designer or a construction company or something that allows you to maybe do referrals or just kind of have some kind of strategic approach to bigger work than you might have to do in-house. So that's one way you can grow your business, is through strategic alliances. Another is partnering with the competition. That's the one that's a little counterintuitive. Sometimes people think they need to beat their competition. A lot of times you can work well with them, and there's actually you can refer, because maybe they do something that you don't do, or maybe they do it better. My husband does computer controls for HVAC in buildings, and he's got certain things he doesn't really like to do. So he'll send them to the guy who does and does it well, but somehow that always comes back to him. Somehow that he cared enough about the customer to send them in the best direction always comes back to him somehow. So that's what I mean by partnering with the competition. Maybe they do something different or better, or you make more together. So just keep that in mind and open your mind to that if that's kind of a new idea. The class I teach for Shemeketa, the students' discussion on competition is always win, beat. I'm like, you can really, there's a lot of that can happen with partnering. So keep that in mind. And employee development. So keep in mind that your employees can sometimes be your best source of growth. And also, it may be that you want to sell your business to your employees at some point, or you can transition that over. It can become an employee-owned business, various things. So keep that in mind if you have employees or are going to hire them, is how can you grow them, collaborate with them, help them be a part of growing the business. That's something that sometimes people forget. And I think that's important to remember, particularly on that business transition side of things. Networking. That's obvious. Network your business right. But I'm an introvert and I don't really like going to networking groups. So I'm going to give you a few other tips, but obviously join networking groups. And those are often offered by chambers of commerce, industry-specific groups, or referral groups where those referral groups act as you're supposed to make a certain number of referrals to your networking group in a month, something like that. So those are good ways sometimes to be a part of something and to feel also connected. Being a business owner sometimes can be lonely or feel alone. And so being a part of networking groups can help that. Attend professional development events, especially in-person ones, can sometimes be a great way to connect with people. Connect one-on-one, that's my preference. I go to networking groups and just kind of feel like, I don't know, I just don't connect with people as well that way. So I would rather have a coffee or meet with somebody one-on-one. So find the way that works best for you to network. There's no one right way or no should. And lastly, give back. So sometimes it's giving to a nonprofit or sponsoring something or mentoring. Could be, being a sponsor for a local 5K, whatever it might be. Sometimes giving back is a great way to network. It's a good way to get out in front. People see you're being involved in the community. So those are just some different ways you can network. But again, I think I've worked with too many business owners over the years that think they have to do it one way and it doesn't fit them. So find the way it fits you and the way that works for you. Entering new sectors. So that could be expansion toward other roles. Again, I'm not an architect, so I don't know what all that might look like. But if let's say you've only been in the design place, maybe you want to get in the construction more. Maybe you want to go that way in some way. So just expanding what your business actually does. This can also come with, as I said before, those strategic alliances that can help with that as well. And then also government contracts. That's one that can be rather lucrative. There could also be a lot of paperwork, and it can be competitive, but there are definitely government contracts for whether it's building buildings, designing buildings, whatever it may be. That would be definitely a good way to go. Oregon Apex Accelerator, as I mentioned earlier, they specialize in helping people learn about government contracts. And in the resource list I'll send you, there'll be a few things. There's also the Oregon COBID. You can get certain certification office for business inclusion and diversity. You can get certain certifications that allow you to get access to some government contracts that they're only offering to certain certifications. So that's emerging small business, women-owned business, disadvantaged, those kinds of things. So that can help. And there's also Oregon Buys, which is the state's procurement system that a lot of local governments as well as the state put on bids that you can bid for various things. It's very interesting to be on that. I get lots of things that I didn't even know there would ever be a government contract on. So that's one way you can just sign up for Oregon Buys and with your industry to see what's out there. And then also federal contracts as well. So there'll be some resources that you can look into that. Okay, expanding your team. So this is the last bit of content. So hiring, things to consider. Sometimes people, I'll just say needs assessment. Sometimes people think I have too much to do. I need to hire somebody, and it's not quite that simple. because you have to pay somebody too, and you often have to make more than what you need to pay them because of the various taxes that come into play. So really need to do a needs assessment. Do I really need to hire somebody or am I overwhelmed? SBDC, again, other technical assistance providers can help looking at that, looking at your financials, looking at your numbers, looking at your workload, and help you see if that's really a good step for you. Fit, and that's when you've decided it is a good step. Who are you hiring? Hiring can be an art form more than a science, and it's hiring right is quite important. So just determining fit, what type of person do you want to hire? What values do you want them to have? Is it somebody you're hoping to maybe hire and mentor that would buy your business later, or those kinds of things? So just really thinking about fit for your business. Turnover can be costly, and just continuing to go through that process isn't much fun. So just get really clear about your ideal employee before you hire someone. Sustainability, that means you can continue to pay them and that you are not going to be laying off people all the time, because that will change your unemployment insurance rate. The more times you lay people off, the higher that rate goes up. So you want to make sure you can sustain an employee. And then there is the employee versus independent contractor question. Some people think, well, I'll just hire an independent contractor and then not an employee, and I'll just pay it for them when they can. Not quite that simple. There are laws around that say this is what an independent contractor is versus this is what an employee is. And you really don't want to have somebody paying somebody as an independent contractor who's really an employee, because that can come back and be lots of back payroll taxes. So it's just good to know the difference between the two. Employee is more, they're supposed to show up at a certain time, certain tasks that you give them. They're not really in control. They have to come to where you are. While an independent contractor is more, they might have a scope of work, but they can do it how they want to do it, when they want to do it, where they want to do it. They'll invoice versus fill out a timesheet. So there's just a lot less. They also generally are already in business and they have other customers. That's a key piece of an independent contractor as well. Is it not just you that they're working for? Sometimes independent contractors that you generally can fit that are like a website designer or a social media person, somebody that you're really just outsourcing something that your business doesn't do. But if it's something your business does, that gets a lot less clear on what's an employee and independent contractor. So I just recommend learning a little bit about that. But if you decide to go the independent contractor route, to make sure you're not violating anything that's going to come back and mean you owe penalties. Okay, that's it. That's what I got.
That was great. Thank you, Joanne. That was
Yeah.
a lot. SBDC seems to do so much, which is exciting. There's a lot of small. I know a lot of people here in the group who've joined, and there's a lot of small business owners. So I think this speaks volumes to them specifically. A couple of quick plugs, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So one, if it's your first time joining the Business of Architecture series, there's a whole bunch of great presentations that we've gone through already. I dropped a link to the YouTube channel on AIAO Oregon, so you can take a look at the chat and go back and rewatch some of those videos. And then a shameless plug, if you're looking to do some more networking, tomorrow the Small Firms Exchange is going to meet at 9 a.m. and we meet every Wednesday from 9 to 9:45, and it's a great group of people. This group of people actually is the ones that help support this Business of Architecture series. So join us. I'll post the link in the chat there as well. Doesn't look like there was any pressing questions through the presentation, so I'm going to open it up to the group that's still with us. If you've got questions for Joanne, feel free to unmute yourself and jump in. Don't everybody jump at once.
Yeah. And if I don't know the answer, I'm generally good at finding it and I can follow up, but please do if you have any questions. I'd be curious who here is a business owner. I don't know if you can raise your hand. I'd be curious who is a business owner and who's looking to be a business owner. So it looks like Andrew, you are a business owner. Okay. Okay. Hector, yeah. Okay.
I know there's quite a few in the chat that are business owners. I won't speak for everyone, but I also see a couple people here that I know are on the path to becoming, if they haven't already, a small business owner.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, I think that sometimes people, they're good at what they do, Like a lot of people are good at what they do, but the whole business side of things is scary. And that's partly what SBDCs do is help you navigate through the business side of things because, I may be a great chef, but running a restaurant and all that comes with that is a whole other thing. Similar, being an architect is one thing, running a business is another. So that's what SBDCs are here for. You know what you're good at and how you do it. We're here to help shore up the places that you might not, just because you haven't had any exposure to it yet. So.
I have a thought which I hope will lead to a question, but bear with me if it doesn't, which is some of the things you talked about, seem more easy, like the nuts and bolts in some ways. And I use that analogy specifically because, it's, sort of like you're trying to figure out what are the actual nuts and bolts, in a project. But it's sort of, I think where I struggle and it's the business plan. That's where I struggle, which is I have trouble putting myself in a box because I feel like I'm limiting, as someone who doesn't have, a ton of clients and can only, I'm working for myself. I don't have huge aspirations to, hire a bunch of people or scale up in a big way. Um, but sort of how do I navigate a business plan when residential, commercial, large or small, as long as they have the patience to stick with me, I'll do their project if to be simple
Yeah.
enough. But yeah.
I think that's actually a great point and question, Andrew, is not every business is going to be more than the person, and not every business is going to hire anybody. And sometimes it's a quality of life business, right? It's not because we're wanting to grow and become, a big business owner. We just want the life that we want and needs that we have, and maybe we like working for ourselves or like the flexibility, and that's okay. In fact, I think that's like you've kind of done the first step of business planning is what do I want this to be? Some people fall into a should and think they should hire employees and they should create this big thing. And it's really not what they wanted. My husband is an example. He kind of semi-retired about 14 years ago and didn't do that very well. So he decided he's going to start a part-time business. He only wanted to work with certain kinds of people, certain kinds of projects. He only wanted to work a certain many hours a week. He spent a fair amount of time in other countries. He didn't want a fleet. He didn't want employees, right? He knew exactly what he wanted and he did that. Now has he grown big and big and big? No, but in fact, he has way less overhead because of the way he did it, that he probably actually brings more profit home than some of these big guys. So it's totally fine to know what you want. It's just a matter of knowing what you want and then creating that. And if it feels like you're not creating it, then that was where you might want to get some assistance, or maybe you're bored. Who knows? But there's no I think if maybe you can kind of segment. So maybe if marketing isn't working well, or maybe it is, but maybe you run into a bad economy and suddenly you start to have to market. That happened a lot in 2008. We used to have people come in like, I didn't have to market before. Now I have to market. Well, guess what? That happens. So sometimes it's just what happens through the course of business, like COVID. Like a lot of people had no clue how to survive a pandemic, right? Nobody had ever been closed up before. So it's totally fine to not need a big comprehensive business plan. Maybe just ask the questions that you need to ask for your particular situation and where you want to go. So totally fine. And I would just say, get started, write down on a piece of paper, play with it. Let your mind, you might find out things you didn't know because you just started asking yourself questions. So I hope that helps.
I work for myself. I play with that idea a lot. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you though. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Looks like we got,
I have a question. Can you hear me?
yeah, is this
Yeah.
Emmy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi,
Sorry.
Emmy.
Um, so I similar to Andrew, I don't really know. I hope as I talk, the question will emerge. But I started my business last year to support a client who couldn't hire me full time as part of their company. So they're like, start a business and I can hire you. And then, eventually through that, other people are like, oh, can you do that service for me too? And then now I have other clients and I'm just curious, like, is it because we live in Portland that like it's always just word of mouth? Like I can't go out and research and find a CPA, but when I ask somebody who their CPA is, like it's always like I can't, there isn't like an independent place to be like, where are all the women-owned like small business like CPAs that would take on just my little
Mhm.
LLC? Like I've tried contacting other people and they're like, well, I don't do anything under like $500,000 revenue. And I'm like, well, then why didn't you say that on your website? Like I don't know, like I feel like it's it's like there's so many dead ends that end up being a waste of time that the only reliable information I can get is to know, like this is the small firms exchange probably is
Mhm.
this, like how do other small architectural firms and sole proprietors get by? And then it's just other people telling you what they use. Like, is there no like clearinghouse like specifically designed for us with you sort by your criteria, and then you can find like here are all those people who you might get along with, who
Yeah.
you would want to share your most personal financial data with, who you could meet for coffee and we would
Yeah.
get along. Because there's no way I can find that on my own without like talking to other people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, why can't I do my own research? There's no like Livelihood Northwest has their own group of people that they recommend, and like
Yeah.
SBDC has their own group of people that they recommend. But like, how do you navigate these redundant lists of people, and like how can you verify who's good for you? Because when I try to do my own independent research, I get nowhere. And like my neighbor is like, well, I use this guy, and I'm like, well, that's not relevant to me.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned CPAs. I don't know if you're finding that in other arenas, and this is somewhat anecdotal, but there
Mhm.
has been quite a lack of CPAs that work with
Mhm.
smaller businesses
Yeah. Okay, it's
statewide.
not just me.
Right. There is a
Okay.
list, and it's on the resource list that I'm sending that's just like find a CPA in Oregon. I don't
Okay.
know that it's quite fit is always, I mean, just because somebody can do something doesn't mean they're a fit for you. So
Yeah.
that's why I always tell clients, talk to other business owners. Um, because they can say, yeah, they communicate well, or they educate me well, or they follow through well, or I just feel safe with them.
Mhm.
Those kinds of things you're not going to find. I mean, you might find it on a website, but probably not. And there is the reality that they seem to be, I don't exactly know why. I don't know if it's just kind of things getting bought up and just focusing on bigger businesses. I know the
Mhm.
accounting field has, um, it's a different arena now with AI and technology. There's a lot of like kind of is the accounting field dying?
Mm.
But it's not just you. No, it's definitely,
Mm.
I have people asking, used to have people asking regularly, is there a good, decent local small business CPA?
Yeah. Or can there be like kind of expanding on that question? Like, is there any place where like sole proprietors help sole proprietors? It's like
I'm
I'm a
not,
sole
yeah,
proprietor architect.
yeah,
You're a sole proprietor CPA.
yeah,
We're at the same size. I don't take on big things.
yeah,
You don't take on big things, and we're gonna what do you call it? Service swap.
yeah,
Even
yeah.
like why isn't there
I'm
like a
aware.
Craigslist of service
Yeah,
swappers, sole proprietors?
yeah. Well, I'm not aware of a list like that, but that right there would be a way for someone to distinguish themselves as a CPA, right? The way they would want
Mhm.
to market themselves to other
Mhm.
smaller businesses is to
Mhm.
say, this is what I do, and make sure they communicate that well so that they can be found. If
Mhm.
they're doing that, then they're
Mhm.
hidden, nobody knows, even if that's what they're setting out to do. If they don't communicate that well and they don't know who their target market is, then they won't do it.
Mhm.
So that's where you want to have that, just back to the whole business planning thing. If you can distinguish, who am I? Who do I want to serve? Right. Um,
Yeah.
like I mentioned earlier, my husband, he likes to serve people who like to save energy. He loves saving energy. So he likes to work with customers who don't want to save energy too. He hates seeing waste, So he's like, I don't want to do that. I
Mhm.
want to do that job. They're just wasting energy. So,
Mhm.
if you can communicate, if one can communicate that, so maybe it's people who work on green buildings, whatever it is, but the
Mhm.
clearer you are, or the business is about what they're doing, the more easy it would be for you to find them.
Mhm.
Right
On
now,
the
like that's
oh,
not the where accounting field is going.
right. But like there's no way, you know how you can like look up in the business registry in the
Yeah.
state? Can you like sort for sole proprietor LLCs and then like by field and then like by B Corp or like by value and then it'll be like, oh, like by woman or minority owned business. You could like just filter
No.
and then you just have the people and you're like, okay, I can write to 5 instead of 500,
Yeah.
you know?
Let me look into that for you, Emmy. There may
Okay.
be
Okay.
a way that's not just the online search that there might be a way to find that. I don't know how, I mean, obviously I get lots of mail from people who somewhere found my name on a list, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, let me look into that for you, but I don't
Okay.
think they set it up to be a referral source. But
Yeah.
there might be that. There is the Oregon COBID. That's
Mhm.
the Certification Office for Business Inclusion and Diversity. You can do a search there,
Yeah.
like that it's a women business owned business.
Yeah.
It's just business owned, but women business certified, which is a little bit different, but a
Yeah, I
little
did that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm familiar.
Yeah, you can search for those, but I still don't know if it's, I don't think the point is necessarily as a like a marketing referral tool. I'll do a
Mhm.
little research on that. We can make sure you get that information. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
A
Any-
certain field has a specific credential that defines their field, you can always look up through that credentialing, system. Like if I'm looking for an architect, I'm like, oh, I'm going to look at AIA because that's where you get your credentials. So
Mhm.
I don't know if the same thing applies for a CPA exactly, but that's something I might start with.
Yeah, the Oregon Bar also has a referral, usually based on what your legal need is, but they have a referral service as well. But I do find that a lot of times the word of mouth can help with fit. Um, like back to my husband, he's not one to get insurance. Like he doesn't get insurance unless he has to. So he does not want an insurance agent who's trying to sell him more insurance. He wants somebody who's just honest with him, tells him what he really needs. So that's just his personal preference. Other people are way more risk averse and want every kind of insurance they can possibly get, and they want that person who's going to look out for every possible thing that can happen. Same with web designers. Just because they can design a website doesn't mean they're your person. Same with anything else. So just really keep in mind a fit, similar as I mentioned, employees. That could just really make a big difference. And so if that person can do it, but they just don't feel right to you, like intuitively, kind of gut feeling, I would listen to that. Just because sometimes it's just not there. I kind of need somebody who can like read my mind when it comes to web design. Like I don't know how to convey what I want. I need you to somehow get it without me explaining it because I don't do well with exposure. So things like that can just make a big difference. So just definitely know that it's not always what someone can do, is are they a fit for you?
I think that's an area of pain and worry for many small business owners because it's a very personal thing choosing who you want to employ or who you want to work with. And then when you figure out, oh, that person is not the right fit for me, how do you like exit yourself from that relationship? Like if you've already hired someone and they're not a good fit and then giving them the reasons why you're firing them or it's just I haven't had to do that personally, but I know many small business owners are like, oh my God, I just don't even want to go there.
Yeah.
It's so scary and painful.
Yeah, and especially if it's something that they haven't had to do before. I mean, one thing to have employees and not have had employees, but if you don't have that experience, it can be really scary to kind of fire somebody, even if they're not an employee. That's why it's good to get clear about what your needs are first, kind of what's important to you. And it's not always what they can do. And sometimes it's how they communicate. It's that they have good processes, that they're real clear about how things work. And sometimes it's just all of that kind of infrastructure around things. Sometimes it's just fit. You just feel it. So I think if people spend a little more time thinking that through, then they're going to be more able to identify it when they see it. Then kind of haphazardly going, well, they're a bookkeeper, I'll hire them. but they're not your bookkeeper for whatever reason. So sometimes it's interviewing, getting references, those kinds of things can help kind of, sometimes it's looking at their social media page, like what are they posting? Are there values that you have? Maybe they do a lot of work for a nonprofit, or they donate a lot, or they do something pro bono. Like some of those things can just be good signs that'll help like that's my person. We don't always know that, but there are ways you can get clearer about it up front, so they're not just picking somebody because they can do it. It doesn't mean they're the one to do it for you. And that's okay. It's almost better to figure that out ahead of time and say, yeah, not a fit. It makes it easier for everybody than to have to undo something that really probably shouldn't have been done to begin with. So.
Well, this has been great. We're at 6 o'clock now. If there's more questions, Joanne has said that she might stick around for a few extra minutes, but just want to thank everyone for their time this afternoon. Again, thank you to Portland Millwork for sponsoring the Business of Architecture series. Thank you to Joanne and SBDC for coming out this afternoon and presenting. We really appreciate it, Joanne, and putting together such a wonderful presentation. Very informative.
I put in the chat the link to where you can find the different SBDCs in Oregon, and every center has what's called a request for advising, where you can request advising, and then that center will call you and connect you with whatever really is the best resource for you. Sometimes it's not the SBDC, sometimes it's something else. But I did put that link in the chat, and it'll also be on the resource list that I sent. And I'm also going to put my email in here. If you do want to follow up with me, I'm no longer a business advisor, but I'm happy to follow up with any specific questions that we talked about today or anything else. I like being a resource. I just want to make clear that I'm not a business advisor anymore, but I'm happy to follow up. Emmy, if you want to email me, I'm happy to see what I can find on that list for you. Because I'm actually curious. So I'm going to make sure I put my readers on to make sure I can read what I'm putting in the chat. Okay, yeah. So I put my email in, and then Jericho and Kathy will get the email, like with all the other resources, that if you ever want to dig deep into some of these things, that they'll be available to you.
Yeah, and to Emmy's point earlier on the CPA information, I did find that there is an Oregon Board Accountancy license lookup, much like the Oregon OSBAY license lookup for architects, but it only goes so far as names and locations, not necessarily small business, minority, or women owned. So
yeah,
like many other things, it's a challenge to navigate, but. Well, with that, I can hang out for a few minutes if people want to take down some of the information in the chat here. Again, shameless plug, Small Firms is meeting tomorrow. If you've never joined us before, this is the type of stuff that we do every Wednesday is we talk through this. I call it a water cooler chat. It's an opportunity for us to all get together and talk about our businesses and the trials and tribulations and ask questions and help educate each other, because we've all got very different experiences. So join us. There's a link in the chat to register, links in the chat to the past videos, links in the chat to Oregon SBDC centers and their primary website if you're looking to learn more. My email's in there, and Joanne's email is as well. So thank you all so much for joining us this Tuesday. Again, thank you so much, Joanne, for coming out and putting on a wonderful presentation. I hope you all have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Well, Joanne, I think you're off the hook. Thanks again. That was great. I appreciate you putting all that together. It was great. I wish we had a slightly bigger turnout, but sometimes you just never know, right?
That's okay. It's sometimes we just trust where we have impact where we do. So it really just means, it's just nice for people to know that there's resources out there. So, That's what matters, and making sure they get, and whether it's the SBDCs or something else. So I will send you, it's you, and what other email do I need to send it to?
If you just want to send it to me, I can share it with Kathy.
Okay.
She's likely been on one or two of the email
Yeah, I
courses.
think she has. Okay. So I'll send it to you all. And then if you want to send it on, it's really just a bunch of links. It's just kind of following up on a deeper dive on some of these issues. People might not need it now, but maybe they'll need it later. So
Yeah, well, and I think to Hector's point, he was the one that actually recommended reaching out to SBDC. He's on Amtrak right now, so he's been
yeah.
silent in
Yeah,
the
I
back.
saw him in the chat and he said
Yeah,
he definitely recommended. Yeah, yeah.
but he recently relocated from California to Oregon, back to Eugene.
Okay.
He's working on being an adjunct professor down there while he also runs his small business in architecture. And he's like, "Hey, there's this really great resource. Have you ever heard of it?" And I was like, "No." And I brought it up to a slew of other small firms members, and they're like, "We've never even heard of this." And I was like, "You all are small business owners. Like, this is like perfect." But so shout out to Hector for introducing us. But um, yeah, feel free to send that to me directly. And if there's ever anything that AIA Oregon can do, you've got my contact, so please reach out, and I'd love to continue uh, whatever we can do to help
Yeah.
each other.
Absolutely. And if there's anything I can do or the SBDCs can do, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll make sure we have Kat's email, I think. I'll make sure you have kind of the general kind of, regardless of if anybody leaves, kind of email, that it'll still be there, just in case in the future. So you have that on, if you want to reach out. I think it's the email that you all reached out to originally.
Okay.
But that's a good email, just kind of like, yeah, people win the lottery or whatever they do and go somewhere else. So I'll make sure you have that email as well. But my email won't change regardless of what I'm doing. So please reach out if there's anything I can do to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, thanks, Jericho. Bye-bye.
Bye.